And then now we get into some fun vehicles. This is the 23 window Volkswagen bus, if you will. This truck was actually purchased new by a flower shop here in Berlin, Germany, and driven for about 50,000 kilometers. It's got about 75,000 kilometers on it now. It is pretty much original to what it was back then. These have just shot up in value. There was one that sold a few years ago for massive sums of money at auction. What's fun with this one is this is the oldest of all of the buses in existence. This is bus number 2, 1950 model, done by Sinalco, which was a gas station, if you will, service center back in the day. And this is 1950, and it is bus number 2, chassis number as far as all that goes. And again, these were all cut up and made into all kinds of different things. You can see that the interior on this one is pretty darn simple, just as you'll see as we get back over to the 23 window. Interior was pretty darn simple. And then we step over into the camping wagon, the Westfalia, 1976. These had that plaid interior, which is where the plaid interior concept came from to go into the GTI back when it was launched in 1983. And this is, of course, the Westfalia edition with that beautiful interior in it as well, too. Still very, very simple, but there was a little extra added padding, and you had the safety bumpers that came in as well, too, as were required. Of course, the roof lifted up as well. Gave you a space to be able to sleep up on top. And rear engine and the Volkswagen engine in there as well too. Then we got into the newer Westfalia model. When I worked at the Porsche, Audi, BMW, Volkswagen, Subaru dealership, these were on our showroom floor. And they again had a little bit more. They have a little bit more trim pieces, a little bit better safety bumper. This is the rare California edition. The seats actually swivel, and you can see that there's a little bit of glare, but we'll go over to the other side to be able to get you a view of the interior here. 1989. Interior was nicer with the full refrigerator. That whole assembly just came down the production line and loaded into the truck. And then the interior had a little bit more padding and a little bit more nicer creature comforts, if you will. And then, of course, here in Germany, then, they made the van longer. You had it move over into this, and then you had it into an all-terrain type of vehicle for the Total gas stations, sponsored by Red Bull. Which was an all-terrain vehicle. Pretty cool. You could do all kinds of different things to the interior of these. And then the Chevy van. It's not a Chevy van. This was a German-only type of thing. You see how beautiful and nice it was. It grew up and it became a real van. But unfortunately, by that point in time, we just never had it. By that time, vans were all the rage in the United States, and they were competing against the Chrysler van, and there was no way you were going to ever compete against the Chrysler van, so Volkswagen just said, we don't need to be in that market, and then pulled out, because you also had the Astro van, you had the full-size Chevy van, you had Ford with a van. Everybody had a van, and this was their concept for the German market. Stunningly beautiful. Massively expensive as well, too. 2015. How much?
150,000
150,000?
euro.
Wow. Geez, 150,000 euro for that. Yeah. I don't think very many people bought it. I don't know what engine's in there. It's got dual stacks, so I don't know. But then, of course, 2-liter diesel. And then, of course, we've got the new van, which we now have at your local dealership in Windsor, and they're $100,000. This was interesting because this was an electric transporter from back in the day. They were playing with electricity for a very long time, trying to figure out how they could take electricity and get rid of fuel, because back in 1979, fuel was so expensive. This was a play on that kind of concept of how could we build an electric car? What could we do? And this was kind of designed perfectly for that, because the center, you could put the battery packs in, and that dispersed the weight between the wheels pretty darn well. This was, again, just something that never met production, but they were playing with electrification and batteries early on as well too. This one around the globe driving around, that's why it's here but it's just your regular typical van that you can find at your local Volkswagen dealership. Thanks for watching.